Welcome to this, the third video in the series telling the story of the Franco-Prussian War of 1810. In this one we will look at the Battle of the Leipzig Gap. After the twin battles of the northern frontier, the defeated Prussian divisions fell back, whilst the French spent a short time recovering before they began their invasion of Prussia. Over the next 2 weeks, both sides manoeuvred their forces into positions where they would hope to gain some sort of advantage over the others. By Friday the 7th of April 1810, the French 2nd Infantry Division had come into contact with the 3rd Prussian Infantry Division in an area to the southwest of Leipzig, in an area which is known as the Leipzig Gap. The French 2nd Infantry Division was commanded by General Leipzig. It comprised the 5th and 6th Infantry Regiments, the 7th and 8th Light Infantry Regiments, the 2nd Artillery Regiment and the 2nd Hussar Regiment. Opposing them was the Prussian 3rd Infantry Division, commanded by General von Horn. It comprised the 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th Infantry Regiments, the 3rd Artillery Regiment and the 3rd Dragoon Regiment. The battlefield was dominated by 2 hills, the space in between them being that known as the Leipzig Gap. General Leipzig deployed his artillery on the hill on his left flank and his 2 infantry regiments in columns in the centre, with his 2 light infantry regiments in columns on his right flank. He kept his cavalry in the reserve area and positioned himself with his artillery. General von Horn deployed his artillery opposite the French artillery. In the centre he deployed an infantry regiment in line and another in column, and on the left he placed an infantry regiment in line and the 4th in column. Like his opponent, he positioned himself with his artillery. The French did not wait to be attacked, but took the initiative. The infantry columns moved forward, and those on the right took possession of the hill. The French artillery fired ineffectually at their opposing Prussian artillery regiment, and the French cavalry advanced onto the battlefield from the reserve area. In response, the Prussian artillery fired at the French columns in the centre, causing both regiments to lose 1 strength point. Maintaining the initiative, the French artillery continued firing at the Prussian artillery opposite them, causing them to lose 1 strength point. Despite being co-located with his artillery, General von Horn escaped injury. In the centre of the battlefield, the front ranks of the Prussian infantry were fired at by the French infantry column, and they were devastated by the loss of 2 strength points. The French infantry on the hill also fired at the Prussian infantry in front of them, but their fire was ineffectual. In reply, the Prussian infantry in the centre fired at the oncoming French column, forcing them back. The Prussian artillery hoped to exploit this by firing at the retreating French infantry, but their fire was inaccurate. Despite the recent setback, the French retained the initiative and their artillery engaged the Prussian artillery, destroying it. Luckily, General von Horn was untouched and remained in command of his division. The French infantry regiments in the centre advanced to their former position and fired at one of the Prussian infantry regiments in front of them, causing them to fall back into their reserve area. The right-hand French columns on the hill advanced and engaged the Prussian infantry in front of them in close combat. Although the fighting was fierce, neither side was able to prevail. The French cavalry moved forward to support the French column in the centre of the battlefield. In response, the remaining Prussian infantry regiment in the centre moved forward and engaged a French infantry regiment in close combat, losing 1 strength point in the process. In addition, the Prussian cavalry charged forward from their reserve area and engaged the central French columns in close combat, but the French stood their ground. The close combat on the Prussian left flank continued, resulting in one of the Prussian infantry regiments losing 2 strength points. Seeing General von Horn was isolated and the position formerly occupied by the Prussian artillery, the French cavalry set off to capture him, but he managed to escape by getting into the Prussian reserve area. The close combat in the centre of the battlefield continued, and the Prussian cavalry lost one strength point. On the Prussian left flank, the continuing close combat there saw one of the Prussian infantry regiments forced to retreat into the Prussian reserve area. Accompanied by General von Horn, the Prussian infantry regiment actually moved forward from the reserve area and fired at the French cavalry, causing them to lose one strength point. A Prussian infantry regiment swung onto the flank of the right-hand French column, and in conjunction with fire from the returned Prussian infantry regiment forced the French to retire to their former position atop the hill. In the centre, the intense close combat continued and saw a Prussian infantry regiment forced to retire to their reserve area, whilst both French infantry regiments suffered the loss of one strength point. At this point, General von Horn erroneously thought that the tide of battle was beginning to swing his way. He ordered a Prussian infantry regiment to attack the French column in the centre, but in the resulting close combat, the Prussian infantry lost one strength point. At the same time, the depleted Prussian cavalry continued to engage the French infantry regiments in the close combat and were destroyed in the process. A Prussian infantry regiment fired at the French infantry, causing them both to lose one strength point. A Prussian infantry regiment fired at the French cavalry, but despite being co-located with their commanding general, their fire was ineffectual. In return, the French cavalry charged the Prussian infantry regiment, causing it to retreat into the Prussian reserve area. General von Horn fled with them, leaving the French in command of the battlefield. General Lepoint allowed the remaining Prussian troops to retreat from the battlefield. His troops were tired and depleted from the intense fighting that had taken place, and his cavalry were unable to harass the remaining French troops. The battle casualties were even more evenly balanced than might have been expected. The Prussians had lost 9 strength points and the French had lost 7. But the Prussians had lost yet another battle and would be hard placed to replace their losses, whereas the French had other divisions nearby that could exploit this victory. The French had won a third resounding victory. That concludes this battle report of the Battle of the Leipzig Gap. I hope you've enjoyed watching it, and I hope you'll watch the next one. In the meantime, carry on enjoying your wargaming, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks very much for watching, and if you haven't already subscribed, think about doing so. Bye.